Scratch orgs. The Salesforce development workflow nobody actually explains properly until now. Here's the big idea up front. A Scratch org is not a smaller sandbox. It's a completely different model, disposable, source-driven, built from nothing every single time you create one. Once that clicks, everything else about modern Salesforce development starts making sense. Let's be precise about the difference. A sandbox is a copy of an existing org. It inherits whatever metadata, and sometimes whatever data, already lives in the org it was copied from. A Scratch org has no parent org to copy. It's built only from a definition file and whatever source is sitting in your project right now. If it's not in your source, it does not exist in the org. That's the whole model. Before you can create one, you need a dev hub, a Salesforce org with the dev hub feature turned on. You authorize it once using the CLI, and every Scratch org you create afterward gets provisioned against that dev hub, counting toward its daily and concurrent limits. The authorization looks like this. SF org login web, -D to set it as your default dev hub, -A to give it an alias so you can reference it by name from here on out. Creating the actual Scratch org is one line. -F points at your definition file. -O assigns an alias, the name you'll actually use instead of a random generated username. Set default makes it the org your CLI targets by default. And duration days sets how long it lives before Salesforce deletes it automatically, up to 30 days. Here's that command in full. SF org create Scratch -F config/project scratchdef.json -a scratch dev set default duration days 7. That definition file, project scratchdef.json, is where you describe the shape of the org you want. Edition, enabled features, or preferences, language, currency. It lives in version control right alongside your metadata, so every developer and every CI job creates an org with an identical shape. Here's a minimal example. Org name, edition set to developer, a features array, and a settings block. In this case, turning on the desktop Lightning experience setting. Nothing exotic, just enough to define the shape once and reuse it everywhere. Now here's the part that actually changes how you work day to day: source tracking. Sandboxes make you manually track what changed and manually deploy it. Scratch orgs track source automatically. The CLI already knows what you've pushed and what's changed locally since, so push and pull only ever move the delta. In practice, that's 2 commands. SF project deploy start pushes your local source changes into the Scratch org. SF project retrieve start pulls changes made directly in the org back into your local source. Build a feature, push it, tweak something faster in the UI if that's easier, pull it back, repeat. Now lifespan. A Scratch org is temporary by design. Default duration is 7 days. Maximum is 30. When it expires, Salesforce deletes it permanently, including any data or config that only ever existed in the org and not in your source. 7 days by default, 30 days max. This is not a limitation to work around. It's the entire point of the model. If losing a Scratch org would lose real work, that work should never have lived only in the org in the first place. Because Scratch orgs are disposable and you'll create a lot of them, you need 2 things: a way to see what you currently have, and a way to clean up what you don't need anymore. SF org list shows every authorized org, including which Scratch orgs are still alive and how many days they've got left. SF org delete Scratch -O, the alias, no prompt, deletes immediately instead of waiting around for expiry. Every org the CLI creates gets an auto-generated username you will never remember. The -A flag at creation time gives you something readable instead: Scratch Dev, PR482, feature loyalty flow. Teams that adopt a naming convention make it obvious which org belongs to which piece of work. This disposable, source-driven nature is exactly what CI pipelines want. Every pull request triggers a pipeline. Authenticate to the dev hub, create a fresh Scratch org, push the branch's source into it, run the Apex tests, delete the org, win or lose. No shared sandbox queue. No environment drift. Pass CI actually means something because it ran against exactly this code. Here's the most common mistake people make switching from sandboxes. Spending an hour manually clicking through setup every time you spin up a fresh Scratch org. Permission sets, page layouts, record types. If you're repeating that setup, it belongs in your metadata, not your memory. Second common mistake: assuming a permission set gets automatically assigned to the default user just because it exists in your metadata. It doesn't. Assign it explicitly, usually with a post-creation script, so new team members and CI pipelines both handle it the same way, every time. Scratch orgs reward the same instinct that makes source control valuable everywhere. Nothing important should live in only one place that can disappear. Get that right, and a scratch org stops being fragile. It becomes genuinely disposable, something you create, use, and destroy without a second thought. Full written breakdown is on realsyllabus.com.